Hello, this is Melanie Guralnik, and for the next hour, I'll be reading from the June 16th issue of the Toronto Sun on the Niagara Frontier radio reading service. The first story is Why Mitch Marner Says His Mental Health Suffered Before a Fresh Start in Vegas by Lance Hornby. From the player once perceived to having the most fun of the young gun Maple Leafs, Mitch Marner elaborated a bit on how the days turned dark for him. During the Vegas Golden Knights' end-of-year availability, 2 days after losing the Stanley Cup final to Carolina, the playoffs' leading scorer reflected on how he'd become concerned for his own mental health as his 9-year Toronto tenure ended, thanking family, friends, and Leafs teammates for helping him deal with it. Quote, "There were really dark moments there that the thought of playing hockey was really tough in a lot of ways. A dark hole in a way," Marner said Tuesday. "Mental health is a super important thing for me. It really is. I've been really trying to take care of it the last 5 years or so." Marner was among the most popular of the Leafs' core four, but constant playoff failures often came back to bite the same quartet of himself, Auston Matthews, William Nylander, and John Tavares. They were fair game for criticism, though Marner's lack of production in big games often stood out most, and he took those barbs the hardest. It became worse when his contract was ending last year, and he blocked a deal to Carolina that would have helped the club, before going to Vegas in a sign and trade. That created a social media storm that did go over the top. Quote, "A lot of us are addicted to social media," Marner said. "You see a lot of comments about yourself. I tried to check out of that the last few years. Get off it. Just get away from it. That's helped in a lot of ways. But you have to be able to talk about it too. You should never be afraid to talk about your fears and emotions. People want you around, want you in their life. I'm really thankful that I had unbelievable teammates in Toronto that I was able to talk to, express myself, who knew what I was going through. It made me better." Marner, a new father, has also brought up his wife, his parents, and other family members. "It's really important to check in on people that are around you. Mental health in this day and age is something that gets talked about, but still overlooked in a lot of ways." He said the shift to Vegas, a team where the pressure came off him to a degree on a second line in a smaller hockey media market, was of enormous benefit, as was the general change of scenery. Quote, "When you're in that mental blender, you put a lot of stress on your body and your mind, up at night, worried about how you can change things. Being in a new environment maybe helped release that a bit. We have a tight-knit group here. It was pretty special." Marner was in the Conn Smythe Trophy conversation for his postseason's points performance, including a Game 3 hat trick. But he and the Knights lost 3 straight where he had only an assist. Counting the Olympics, despite Canada's loss to the U.S., it was a year of growth. Quote, "You always believe in yourself that you can do spectacular things. But in our sport, you can't do anything by yourself. You need 5 people. Our line had great chemistry. We have a special team here." There is a picture of Mitch Marner. He is just entering the ice skating rink. He's got his hockey stick thrown over his right shoulder, and there's a spotlight on him that you could see on the ice. So I don't know if they're like maybe calling his name as he's entering the ice rink, but the spotlight's on him. Photo courtesy of Getty Images. That story was Why Mitch Marner Says His Mental Health Suffered Before a Fresh Start in Vegas by Lance Hornby. The next story is Private Funeral for Slain Constable Mark Pinizzotto set for next Wednesday by Jordan Ursit. A private funeral service will be held next week for Constable Mark Pinizzotto, who was killed in the line of duty recently while helping serve a search warrant in North York. The service for the 18-year Toronto police veteran is scheduled for June 24 at 1 p.m. at the Toronto Congress Centre on Dixon Road in Etobicoke. The funeral will be closed to the public, with only people close to the family, police service members, and emergency personnel invited. The Toronto Police Service would like to thank members of the public who have offered their support and condolences, a statement said. While we appreciate the public support, the funeral is not open to the general public. They said the public is invited to watch the funeral procession from Kane Jarrett Funeral Home in Thornhill to the Toronto Congress Centre, with details about the route and broadcast information about the service to be released in the coming days. Private visitations will also take place before the funeral. Pinizotto, 43, a member of the Emergency Task Force, was helping serve a search warrant linked to shootings at the U.S. Consulate and local synagogues when he was shot last Thursday at an apartment complex in the Black Creek and Trethaway Drives, I think that's what it means, DRS, area. He was pronounced dead at Sunnybrook Health Sciences Center despite attempts to save his life. Nicholas Bennett, 19, was shot during the exchange of gunfire and is expected to be charged with first-degree murder. Toronto Police provided an update on the complex case Tuesday with Chief Myron Demicu, saying that we lost one of our own during the investigation. Quote, Constable Mark Pinizotto's service and sacrifice will never be forgotten, he said. We remain focused on holding those responsible accountable and on continuing the work needed to prevent further violence in our city. Pinizotto, who is survived by his wife Andrea and his children Daniela and Dominic, was one of 2 local officers killed in the line of duty last week after OPP Constable Taryn Bally, a Brampton native, was struck and killed during an investigation in Northern Ontario. An 18-year-old from Hearst, Ontario, was charged with murder and other offenses linked to Bally's death. A funeral for Bally, 29, will be held Thursday morning at Mississauga Sports and Entertainment Center. The officers' deaths led to an outpouring of support for their families, including attempts by the mayors of Brampton and Mississauga to rename parks after the slain officers. Mississauga Mayor Carolyn Parrish will be putting forward a motion on Wednesday to rename Indian Gate Park in Pinizotto's honor, on the same day that Brampton Mayor Patrick Brown plans to ask council to work with Bally's family to find a suitable place to honor his service and sacrifice. Parrish said they picked Indian Gate Park in the city's south end because Pinizotto and his brothers used to play there when they were young boys. There is an undated picture of Toronto Police Constable Mark Pinizotto, and he is standing with his family. They're all dressed for the summer. His wife is really beautiful. She's wearing a sundress. She's got long brown hair, brown eyes. Her daughter looks like a little mini-me version of her with the same hair coloring and eye coloring, and she's in a pretty floral sundress. And Mark has brown hair, brown eyes. He's wearing a t-shirt, and his son looks like a mini-me version of him too. He's got brown hair, brown eyes. Definitely is rocking the same features. They look really happy in this picture. Photo courtesy of Toronto Police, posted on X. That story was Private Funeral for Slain Constable Mark Pinizotto, set for next Wednesday, by Jordan Ursit. The next story is Hot Mike catches Mark Carney and Donald Trump discussing Chinese EVs, by Gordon Anderson. Prime Minister Mark Carney uttered electric comments that sounded like music to the ears of U.S. President Donald Trump. Carney is in France for a G7 summit, and Tuesday represented the first time that he and Trump had been in the same room this year. It was their comments on a hot mic about Chinese electric vehicles, though, that captured people's attention. Quote, "Less than 3% of our market, 49,000 cars," the Prime Minister was overheard saying to Trump in Evian-les-Bains, ahead of a working lunch between the leaders on Tuesday. The quote apparently referenced how many Chinese EVs are allowed to enter the Canadian market at a lower tariff rate, with Carney adding, "It's a cap. I thought you'd actually like that." "That's good. I like that," Trump said. In January, Canada and China struck a deal on EVs that would see 49,000 enter the Canadian market at a tariff rate of 6.1%. Since 2024, Chinese-made EVs were subject to a 100% tariff in lockstep with America's trade policy on Chinese EVs. In response to the deal, the Chinese government dropped some tariffs on Canadian canola and seafood, while the Beijing government promised to provide affordable electric options for consumers in Canada. Canola is an important cash crop for Canadian farmers. It is used to make cooking oils, animal feed, biofuels, lubricants, detergents, and cosmetics. On previous occasions, the Carney government predicted that in 5 years, more than 50% of electric vehicles will have an import price of less than $35,000. The EV agreement has been criticized by the Trump administration and the domestic auto sector. Quote, "I think they'll look back at this decision and surely regret it to bring Chinese cars into their market," U.S. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy said at an event at a Ford factory in Ohio in January. The heavyweights in the domestic auto sector, Ford, General Motors, and Stellantis, said the entry of electric vehicles subverts the auto industry and exposes Canadians to cyber risks. The Canada-United States-Mexico Agreement, or CUSMA, CUSMA, on free trade is up for renewal on July 1, and the auto sector is likely to be central in some of those trade talks. The Canada Day deadline to renew the pact for another 16 years is likely to pass without the three countries reaching an agreement. There is a picture of U.S. President Donald Trump speaking with the Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney. This was taken on June 16th of this year in France, and Trump is facing towards Mark Carney. He's wearing his typical blue suit, red tie, white shirt, and he's holding onto a white chair in front of him, kind of like propping himself up. And for whatever reason, he just doesn't look well. Like he looks very like he's very sweaty and his hair's kind of messy. And Mark Carney is wearing a blue suit as well, and he's standing more upright. And you could see he's like speaking, and he's got his hands like moving or something as he's speaking. Photo courtesy of Evelyn Hochstein via Getty Images. That story was Hot Mike Catches Mark Carney and Donald Trump Discussing Chinese EVs by Gordon Anderson. The next story is it time to talk about executing killers who murder cops and kids? By Brad Hunter. Benjamin Ritchie caught the night train to Nowheresville at 12:46 a.m. on May 20th. Ritchie took his seat in the death chamber at the Indiana State Prison in Michigan City with his ticket punched. Lethal injection. Final destination? Oblivion. He had been a death row habitué since 2002. Kopp was married with 2 kids. On September 29, 2000, Ritchie, then 20, and on probation, and others stole a van in Beech Grove, Indiana, outside Indianapolis. During a foot pursuit, he fired at police officer Bill Toney, killing him. Toney was married with 2 children. Quote, "It's time. We're all tired," said Dee Dee Horan, who was Toney's wife. "It is time for this chapter of my story, our story, to be closed. It's time for us to remember Bill, to remember Bill's life and not his death." For Benjamin Ritchie, the consequences of his vile crime were fatal. In Ontario, over the past 2 weeks, 2 cops have been murdered, and a third nearly bought the farm when he was allegedly run down by a 12-year-old boy behind the wheel of a stolen car. You are listening to a reading of articles and features from the Toronto Sun. on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. OPP Constable Taryn Bally, 29, was run down and killed while attempting to stop a vehicle near Hearst in Northern Ontario on June 9th. Justin Verano, 18, of Hearst, has been charged with first-degree murder and a litany of other charges. 2 days later, it was Toronto's turn to mourn when TPS Emergency Task Force, ETF, Constable Mark Pinizzotto, 43, was shot and killed while executing a search warrant connected to national security. He was a married father of 2 and an 18-year member of the police service. Cops say Nicholas Bennett, 19, is allegedly the shooter. He is in critical condition in hospital after ETF members returned fire. If he emerges from his coma, detectives say Bennett will be charged with first-degree murder. And early Monday, tragedy nearly struck again when a 12-year-old boy allegedly slammed a stolen vehicle into an officer in the East End, sending the cop to hospital. Police returned fire and struck the kid, who remains in hospital. The cop was treated and released. The boy is now charged with attempted murder, theft of a motor vehicle, and assaulting an officer. None of the charges have been proven in court. Canada abolished the death penalty in 1976 and sent the last 2 men to the gallows at Toronto's Old Don Jail in December 1962. Yet support for capital punishment remains stubbornly high, with a whopping 57% of Canadians in favor of bringing back the death penalty. No wonder. The activist Supreme Court of Canada has stripped away sentence stacking and also bolstered the fortunes of rapists, killers, and kitty diddlers in myriads of ways. Over the past decade, a spike in murder and lawlessness has been fueled by feckless judiciary and their booster clubs in politics and the faculty lounge. I'm against the death penalty. No moral qualms about it. No savior complex. Instead, I share my friend and colleague Brian Lilly's view that the government screws up everything. Why trust them with the death penalty? Still, I have no difficulty understanding why the public wants to see cop and child killers swing. Indianapolis cop Mark Hammer said of Ritchie's final departure, quote, "I support the death penalty in certain cases, and this is one of them." That story was Is It Time to Talk About Executing Killers Who Murder Cops and Kids? By Brad Hunter. The next story is With Hockey Night in Canada gone, it's time to reinvent Sportnet's NHL coverage by Steve Simmons. This is the perfect time to start over again. To find the next Ron MacLean. To find the next panel that rocks. To become, under a new name every Saturday night, what Hockey Night in Canada used to be. The program that set the standard for hockey on television in Canada. The program that has since lost its way. And now, with the official announcement made Tuesday that CBC is out of the NHL business, and that the name Hockey Night in Canada is owned by the taxpayer-supported network, the opportunity is there for Rogers Sportsnet to begin all over again. To clear the deck, even if they don't necessarily see it that way. Rogers has never had a clear vision about the quality of their own national hockey broadcasts. They've never completely took stock of the deterioration they have been party to. They just don't get it, said a television executive who doesn't work for Rogers. The show has become so bad. From where it came from, I think it's the worst of the worst. There will be hockey on Saturday nights in the fall in Canada on Rogers Sportsnet, as there has been for the past 12 years. It just won't be on CBC anymore, where it has been televised for the past 74 years. That's more than just a tradition. That has been our lives. And barring unforeseen circumstances, this is it for NHL hockey on CBC. How will hockey viewers lose out? The national hockey audience in the country will shrink from about 11 million to about 9 million with the move off CBC. The people who get CBC, that's pretty much everyone with a television, and don't want to pay for Sportsnet, will no longer get Saturday night games. That's unfortunate, but that's just a fact of modern broadcasting life. Pretty much nothing comes for free anymore. If you want NHL hockey on television, you have to get Sportsnet in whatever package you're paying for. If you want to get your local team, you have to pay for the network that has their rights. CBC could no longer afford to pay Sportsnet for whatever partnership agreement they had for the past 12 years. It was their call to get out. Money is forever tight at the People's Network, as it is just about everywhere else. But at the same time, the world of professional sports has become rather simple in recent times. If you want content and don't steal it or stream it, you have to pay for it. If you want Murdoch Mysteries, you can watch CBC and get it without paying. If you want a Maples Leaf Canadiens game on a Saturday night, followed by a doubleheader game, you'll have no choice but to watch Sportsnet. What changes must Sportsnet make? With a new name, and hopefully a new show of some kind. Hope being the key word here. You need a new host. No more apologies, no more friend references, no more strange music history. If you can't afford James Duthie, why not Brian Hayes? You need a new vision for the program. The Hall of Famer, Chris Cuthbert, has to stay as the #1 play-by-play man. Elliot Friedman has to stay as the insider. Nobody does that complicated job better than him. Kevin Bieksa has to stay as panel member and analyst. After that, you can begin all over again. With a new host, with new panelists, with new segments between periods that you can't wait for, with better broadcasters on the second and third games, with fresh voices and a fresh look. An entire 3-hour renovation is needed, along with a creative vision for the future. Time was Hockey Night in Canada stood alone as the gold standard of sports broadcasting. We grew up with it. The show became ours, part of our life, part of our personal history. That was before TSN began to take over hockey. That was before TNT entered the hockey broadcast world in the United States. That was before Paul Bissonnette and Kenny Albert and Jeff O'Neill and Ray Ferraro and Ed Olczyk became the most important television voices in the game. Now, Sportsnet starts with a new name and the same day, like Saturday Night Live without a weekend update. Rogers will look to sell off some of its midweek package in the NHL, just as it sold off Monday nights last season to Amazon. The NHL rights are an expensive proposition for Rogers. It's almost impossible to make money on them unless you piece off part of your package. CBC paid for Saturday nights and playoffs until it couldn't anymore. Now it's time to start over. The roadway is without traffic. The coast is clear. It's time to correct all that went wrong the past 12 years, and with less than 4 months to get it right. There is a picture of Kevin Bieksa and Elliot Friedman, and they're standing outside. They're wearing these black windbreakers that are identical, and then they have these lanyards around their neck with their ID, and there's like pictures of them, and there's other information. And Kevin is wearing a black ball cap that says 1925 on it. And Elliot doesn't have a hat on, but he's holding some kind of like a briefcase. Photo courtesy of Getty Images. That story was With Hockey Night in Canada gone, it's time to reinvent Sportnet's NHL coverage by Steve Simmons. The next story is Carney set to buy Swedish Gripen jet. And Then What? By Brian Lilly. The Gripen fighter jet, built by Sweden's Saab, has lost whatever open competition the Canadian military has held between it and the F-35. Despite this, the Carney government appears set to announce that it will buy the Gripen. The leadership of the Royal Canadian Air Force, the leadership at the Department of National Defence, and Defence Minister David McGuinty all back proceeding with the planned purchase of 88 F-35 fighter jets. Yet, for political rather than military reasons, the Carney government is expected to announce shortly that Canada will pivot to buy the Swedish-made Gripen jet. While Minister McGuinty supports the military in their plans to purchase the F-35, Industry Minister Melanie Joly and Stephen Furr, the former fighter pilot turned point man for Carney on defense procurement, back the Gripen. Joly supports buying the Gripen due to a combination of anti-Americanism and a desire to try and get Saab to build the Gripen in Montreal. The claim is that building the Gripen here will create 10,000 jobs, and yet Brazil's efforts to build the Gripen at home has barely created 200 jobs. The F-35, on the other hand, already sustains thousands of jobs in this country as Canadian parts are put in every single plane deployed. Furr, on the other hand, has been described by multiple sources as a man who simply hates the F-35 and has never liked the fifth-generation stealth aircraft. Ottawa insiders say that as of late, it's Furr who has Carney's ear, and that what he's doing is he's going around McGuinty's back to poison the well with Carney on the F-35. Meanwhile, throughout this process, senior leadership at National Defence has been frozen out of not only the decision-making process, but also the conversations around what should happen next. When the F-35 has been ranked against the Gripen by Canadian officials, the F-35 has won time and again. Late last year, CBC obtained an internal D&D document showing that when rated head-to-head, the F-35 got a score of 57 out of 60, while Saab's Gripen scored 19 out of 60. As for being able to handle running two types of fighter jets, the RCAF is short of both pilots and maintenance techs. Adding more complexity by adding a new plane won't help. When it comes to modern fighter jets, the F-35 has no comparison in its technical or war-fighting capabilities. The opposition to the jet is based solely on politics and always has been. Yet this is a jet that was developed by Canada, the United States, and other NATO allies over decades. Canada signed on to what was called the Joint Strike Fighter Program in 1997, to work with other allies to develop the next generation of fighter jet. Starting in 2008, when the Harper Conservatives were in power, the Liberals, who had originally committed Canada to the program, turned against it. The F-35 has been a political football now for close to 20 years, with Canada committing to buy it, then review it, then buy it, then review it. Now, it appears that the Carney government wants to ensure they announce that they will be buying Gripen jets ahead of the Farnborough International Air Show taking place in Britain in July. At that event, it is expected that the Carney government will also commit Canada to joining the Global Comet Air Program, a plan by Britain, Italy, and Japan to build a sixth-generation fighter jet with allies. Given how we have acted over the last 29 years in the fifth-generation program, it's a wonder why they would want us. The part that isn't clear amid all the speculation that the Carney government will announce that they will buy the Gripens is whether they will stick with the full 88 F-35 jets originally planned or tap out at the 30 currently on order. Either way, there will be consequences that Canadians have not been told about. There is a picture of Royal Norwegian Air Force F-35s that are in flight, and they are a dark gray color. They have a very long pointed nose, and it looks like the nose has this kind of like stick that comes out at the very tip. And where the pilot flies, it's a very small capsule with like a tinted glass. And there's like three that are flying kind of up, and you could see the horizon behind them. Photo courtesy of U.S. Air Force by the Minot Air Force Base. That was Carney Set to Buy Swedish Gripen Jet. And Then What? By Brian Lilly. You are listening to a reading of articles and features from the Toronto Sun on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The next story is High School Hitman Hired by Influential Adults Waging Toronto's Tow Truck War by Michelle Mandel. He was a hired high school hitman in Toronto's escalating tow truck wars. Just 16, the young gun for hire was paid to assassinate Sulukshan or Sully Selvasingham, and on the night of July 6, 2024, he coolly gunned down the 28-year-old tow truck owner in his white Mercedes SUV at the Shell gas station at Warden Avenue and Ellesmere Road. According to an agreed statement of facts at his guilty plea to first-degree murder, the teen, who can be identified only as AP, received instructions from an adult a day earlier on how to execute his target. He was to shoot Selvasingham in the body and, when he went down, finish him off with a bullet to the head. He was told to record the murder and send confirmation for payment. Outside court, the victim's heartbroken father said he believes the teenaged contract killer and his two co-accused, who pleaded guilty last week to being accessories to the discharge of his firearm, were paid just $7,500 for the hit, though the agreed statement made no mention of the fee. He blamed Selvasingham's business competitors who hired kids to do their dirty work. Quote, "Somebody paid money for them to kill my son," said the dad, who still lives in fear and didn't want his name used. His eldest owned his truck, but his father urged him to find a safer line of work, such as real estate. Quote, "We heard every day they burn tow trucks. They shoot at tow truck drivers. So many things. I said, don't do that. This is very dangerous," he recalled telling him. 3 months before his murder, his son assured him he was giving it up. Crown attorney Sharna Reed said Selvasingham had been the target of violence before. Quote, "His murder is connected to the well-known violence in the tow truck industry," she told Superior Court Justice Maureen Forstell. Influential adults connected to the tow truck industry recruited AP to commit this offense. They had access to firearms and were prepared to engage in retaliatory violence within the towing industry. Quote, "AP believed that they would not hesitate to harm their perceived enemies, including those who had been previously aligned with them. These adults use young persons, including AP, by offering him a sum of money to carry out the murder of Mr. Selvasingham. AP and his fellow hired guns were in stolen vehicles as they spent July 5th and July 6th scouting the area near Kennedy Road and Highway 401 in search of AP's target, the prosecutor said. On the night he was killed, Selvasingham was at a car meet at Kennedy Commons Plaza with a friend. They left at 10 p.m. to get food, but Selvasingham said he first needed to make a quick stop to meet someone. He drove into the Shell station and parked driver's side to AP's stolen white Honda Civic. It was an unwitting rendezvous with his young killer. Quote, "Mr. AP shot Mr. Selvasingham 9 times, including in the head," Crown Attorney Sharna Reed said, as Selvasingham's mother and sister wept, and the killer, now 18, showed no emotion at all. After the murder, AP and his 2 friends met up in Uxbridge, where they threw the Honda's stolen license plates down a sewer drain, torched the car, and fled in a stolen black Acura. The same adults who hired him to kill also recruited him to commit other shootings aimed at businesses tied to the tow truck industry, Reed said. AP pleaded guilty to 13 counts of reckless discharge of a firearm between May and July 2024 at various locations, including 2 cinemas, an auto collision center, and a towing company. Quote, "The young persons involved were instructed to record the shootings for proof of completion of the offenses," Reed said. AP and one accomplice were caught July 15th after an unmarked OPP Cruiser's automatic license reader alerted police to a stolen 2020 Dodge Charger on the 401. AP crossed several lanes to exit at Keel Street, went through a red light, and when police tried to box him in, he and his passenger fled their moving vehicle. On his arrest, a loaded Glock 23.40 caliber handgun fell to the ground from AP's satchel. The firearm was the firearm used to kill Mr. Silvasingham 9 days earlier, Reed said. A sentencing date hasn't been set. Under the Youth Criminal Justice Act, the maximum penalty for first-degree murder is 10 years, with only 6 in custody. There is a picture of the tow truck driver Sulikshan or Sully Silvasingham. He was only 28. He looks super young. He's got really dark brown hair, maybe it's black, brown eyes, and he's got a little mustache. He looks like he's dressed to maybe go to a wedding or something. He's wearing a black jacket with a shiny, like royal blue shirt, and there's like a marble wall behind him. Photo courtesy of Ajax Funeral Home. That story was high school hitmen hired by influential adults waging Toronto's tow truck war, by Michelle Mandel. The next story is Aurora man charged in 2 alleged indecent acts, pair charged in Toronto homicide, by Jane Stevenson. Toronto police have charged a 66-year-old Aurora man in an indecent act investigation. It's alleged that on May 27th, the accused committed an indecent act at an elementary school in the Jane Street, Finch Avenue West area, and that multiple young students witnessed the incident. It's further alleged that on June 10th, the accused committed an indecent act at an elementary school in the Highway 7 Warden Avenue area. Paolo Novella has been charged with criminal harassment, indecent act exposure, and incident act. Police believe there may be more victims, and an image of the accused has been released. Anyone with information is asked to contact police at 416-808-3100. Crime Stoppers anonymously at 416-222-8477 or at www.222tips.com. 2 men from the GTA have been charged in connection with a Toronto homicide over the weekend. Cops responded to an unknown trouble call in the Keel Street, Wilson Avenue area on Sunday at 6:01 a.m. after it was reported a group of people were fighting in the area and an adult male was assaulted and struck by a vehicle. Police said life-saving measures were performed, but the victim was pronounced dead at the scene. An unknown number of suspects fled in a light-colored vehicle. The victim has been identified as Eric Safar, 32, of Toronto. This is Toronto's 14th homicide of 2026. On Tuesday, Milan Andras Babos, 18, of Hamilton, and Richard Ola, 23, of Toronto, were both arrested and charged with second-degree murder after turning themselves into police. Anyone with information is asked to contact police at 416-808-7400 or Crime Stoppers anonymously at 416-222-8477 or at www.222tips.com. That was Aurora man charged in 2 alleged indecent acts, pair charged in Toronto homicide, by Jane Stevenson. The next story is Why the Maple Leafs Were Comfortable in Trading Joseph Woll to the Flyers by Terry Koshin. We had a good idea that the Maple Leafs were going to trade a goaltender during the offseason. Originally, our thinking was that Dennis Hildeby had performed well enough in a 20-game stint with the Leafs during 2025 through 26 that he was going to take a run at a full-time job in training camp in September. And he still might. Hildeby would be safe, we figured, because he will require waivers next season to be sent to Toronto Marlies. You have a better chance of starting in goal for the Marlies next season than Hildeby does in getting through waivers, if it was to come to that. But here came Artur Akhtiamov, who upset the Leafs' goaltending apple cart in a good way. In taking over the Marlies' starting goaltender in a run to the Calder Cup final that no one, when the American Hockey League playoffs started in April, saw coming, Akhtiamov has served notice that he will be deserving of a shot in camp as well. The 24-year-old Akhtiamov was in line to make his 18th start in a row on Tuesday night, as the Marlies played host to the Chicago Wolves in Game 3 of the Calder Cup final. With a 2-0 lead in the best-of-7 series, Akhtiamov has been a crucial piece, if not the most crucial piece, of the Marlies' postseason success. Quote, "You want the young players to force your hand a bit, and certainly the way that they played Dennis at the NHL level, AA with what he's doing with the Marlies right now, it's definitely causing you to take notice and make plans," Leafs general manager John Chayka said. So that's two good, seemingly NHL-ready goalies with the Marlies then. What to do with Anthony Stolarz, whose 4-year extension with an average annual value of $3.75 million US kicks in this coming season? And Joseph Woll? On Tuesday, we got our answer. Czechia, taking a break from his coaching search, made his first significant trade as GM in Toronto, shipping Woll to the Philadelphia Flyers. Also going to the Flyers is veteran depth defenseman Simon Benoit. Who did the Leafs get in return for Woll? The surprise, at least on the surface, is that the Leafs got another goalie, Samuel Ersson, in return, as well as defenseman Emil Andre and a third-round pick in the 2026 NHL Draft. Both Ersson, 26, and Andre, 24, are restricted free agents this summer. Ersson's qualifying offer, per puckpedia.com, is $1.6 million, while Andre's is $874,125. Both players are eligible for arbitration. While Chayka said that Ersson has some upside, he did not answer directly when asked whether the Leafs will qualify him. For the time being, the subtraction of Woll, 2 years remaining with an AAV of $3.6 million, and Benoit, 1 year with an AAV of $1.35 million, takes the Leafs to approximately $27 million under the salary cap. While the Leafs have to keep Stolarz' injury history in mind, it wouldn't be a shock if Ersson is traded further down the road. And if Ersson remains with the Leafs, the club likely won't be as bothered with the notion of losing him on waivers if he is cut in camp. Drafted by the Flyers in the 5th round in 2018, Ersson has posted a shoddy .884 save percentage in 143 career games in the National Hockey League. Last season, Ersson was last in save percentage in the NHL among goalies who played a minimum of 25 games with a mark of .870. The addition of Andre to the blue line could be a key piece of the trade puzzle for the Leafs. Why do the Leafs like Andre? In fact, from the way Chayka talked during his media availability, Andre was the Leafs' focus. Quote, "Our staff felt good about him on our roster. A smart competitive player helps us break the puck out more efficiently. A good puck mover that could help join the rush," Chayka said. "We're getting a good young D, And candidly, we could use some more defense in that age group. We satisfied a need. A second-round pick by the Flyers in 2020, the Sweden native had 2 goals and 11 assists in 61 games with Philly this past season. He's 3 years younger than Benoit and won't bring the physicality that Benoit was supposed to provide. For most of last season, Benoit had no bite in his game, but has a good brain for the game and plays with poise and awareness. The Leafs will look past Andre's size. He's 5'9" and 189 pounds, with the knowledge that he can move the puck. You are listening to a reading of articles and features from the Toronto Sun on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The Leafs absolutely must get younger and smarter on the blue line. And 1-for-1, Andre should provide more than Benoit did in both regards. No matter what Andre could provide, his addition has to be just the start for Chayka in reshaping the Leafs' defense core. Whether a trade of Morgan Rielly happens remains to be determined. Talks between his agent, J.P. Barry, and the Leafs are ongoing. But no one questions whether the Leafs need to make major improvements on their back end. That doesn't include, of course, the goaltending. There is an undated picture of Toronto Maple Leafs goalie Joseph Woll. He looks to be at some kind of like a press conference. He is wearing a blue hoodie that says Maple Leafs on it, number 60. He's wearing a matching blue ball cap. And there is a blue and white, like a wallpaper behind him that says Ford and then Maple Leafs logos together. And then there's a microphone pointed at him. He isn't speaking in this picture. He's kind of looking off to the side. Maybe a reporter is asking him a question. Photo courtesy of Ernest Dorzuk via the Toronto Sun. That was Why the Maple Leafs Were Comfortable in Trading Joseph Woll to the Flyers by Terry Koshan. The next story is Medicine Hat closes all pools and aquatic facilities after child dies at park by Stephen Tipper. The city of Medicine Hat has closed all city-run pools and aquatic facilities following the death of an 11-year-old child Monday at a regional park. On Monday, at about 2:17 p.m., Medicine Hat police responded to a report of a missing child at Echo Dale Regional Park, located about 15 minutes west of the city center. The child was located at about 3:30 p.m. and taken by EMS to hospital. On Tuesday, police confirmed the child had died. The circumstances surrounding the incident remain under investigation, but foul play is not suspected, said Medicine Hat police. In response to the incident, the city of Medicine Hat said it immediately closed all city-run pools and aquatic facilities. They will remain closed until further notice. This pause will allow for a thorough review and to provide support to those impacted, said the city of Medicine Hat in a news release. Echo Dale Regional Park is described on its site as a hidden oasis, with a campground, bike trails, a boating lake, and a swim lake. Support resources are being provided to aquatic staff, first responders, and others, and the city says it has reached out to community partners and local school divisions to ensure supports are available to youth and families. Quote, "Our heartfelt condolences are with the child's family, friends, and all those affected by this tragic loss," said Joe Hutter, interim city manager, in a statement. "I can't begin to imagine the grief this family is experiencing." The municipality said it's working with authorities to review the incident and will provide updates when more information becomes available. Echo Dale Regional Park also remains closed until further notice. There is an aerial picture of downtown Medicine Hat. It was taken November 2022, and you could see a bridge over a road for a train. There's also another bridge that's kind of more elaborate for cars, and the river is like a pretty color green. there are trees surrounding the river, and then behind it you can see some multi-story buildings. Photo courtesy of Gavin Young via Postmedia. That story was Medicine Hat closes all pools, aquatic facilities after child dies at park, by Stephen Tipper. The next story is, was Bunny XO's sex worker past the reason behind split with Jelly Roll? By Danette Wilford. Jelly Roll and Bunny XO's split may have shocked fans, but insiders claim it's been brewing for a while. The country star, 41, filed for divorce from Bunny XO, 46, on May 18th, according to legal documents obtained by TMZ. He cited irreconcilable differences as the reason for the split and listed their date of separation as May 9th. On May 16, 2 days before Jelly Roll's divorce filing, Bunny hid out at her ex's in a video on Instagram. The clip shows her in a black tube top and black flared pants walking down a driveway as the camera zoomed in blue garbage bins behind her. Quote, "I hate when my exes ruin a good shot," the text on the video read, captioning the post with a trash emoji. Faith versus sex. A source close to the Son of a Sinner star told People that the pair have always had a complicated dynamic, noting that when they first met, Jelly was struggling financially, and Bunny made her living as a sex worker. They acknowledged that since Jelly's career took off, as well as how he is overhauling his outlook on life and health, having recently lost nearly 300 pounds, the singer has changed a lot. The source noted, quote, "There wasn't a moment where everything fell apart. They still love each other, but were no longer on the same page about certain things, including what they wanted their future to look like. People saw the public side of things, but there was a lot more going on privately." Some say that religion may have played a part in the couple split, as the Dumb Blonde podcast host's lifestyle has reportedly been clashing with the Save Me singer's faith for some time. There is just such a conflict in what's going on. He's preaching this Christian way of life. She's posting mostly naked and talking about porn and penises on her podcast, a source told the Daily Mail. At every turn, she's just kind of embarrassing him and wrecking every PR narrative that they're trying to create. The insider continued. This is the talk of the town in Nashville. Is it all an act? In his acceptance speech for the Best Contemporary Country Album at the Grammys in February, Jelly, his real name Jason DeFord, first credited Jesus before turning his attention to his wife for saving his life. Quote, "First of all, Jesus, I hear you, and I'm listening, Lord. I am listening, Lord," he began. "Second of all, I want to thank my beautiful wife. I would have never changed my life without you. I would have ended up dead or in jail. I would have killed myself if it wasn't for you and Jesus. I thank you for that." However, another source admitted they were wary of the singer's born-again Christian act, but whatever the case, it appeared Bunny wasn't fully on board with this transition. Quote, "He saw a lot of money in this market and told Bunny to get it together. But she wouldn't stay in line, and it is destroying his brand," the source told the outlet. Bunny, born Elisa Carter, simply wants to be her authentic self. Quote, "She just wants to be what she is," the source told the Mail. "She's been an escort and in porn and gets her validation and audience from being in a G-string. That's been her life, but now, suddenly, he's a preacher and she's a preacher's wife." Their daughter breaks silence. Jelly Roll's daughter, Bailey Ann, has weighed in to the reaction of her dad's divorce from her stepmom. "I am disgusted at how invested everyone is in a very clearly private family matter," the 18-year-old wrote on her TikTok on Tuesday. "It's effing crazy." She added, Go on somewhere, y'all. Worry about your house, not mine. That said, she did hint that she might share her thoughts on divorce publicly in the near future. I'm not speaking on it. Yet. Perhaps Bunny has too? Also on Tuesday, the podcaster posted a video on Instagram of her lip-syncing along to Nickelback's How You Remind Me, specifically the part where the lyrics are, quote, "It's not like you didn't know that. I said I love you and I swear I still do. And it must have been so bad, 'cause living with me must have damn near killed you." There is a picture of Jelly Roll and Bunny XO. They're attending the 68th Grammy Awards. That was in February of this year. And Jelly Roll is wearing just a very plain black outfit, black shirt, black jacket. He's got a big silver chain, and he's got lots of tattoos. Like there's one on his neck that's really kind of big. Can't tell what it is. And then he's got them all over his face, like his forehead, above his eyebrow. He has this cross coming down from under his right eye all the way down to his mouth. Yeah, there's a lot going on there. And he's got brown hair, and he's just kind of looking at the camera, no smile. And Bunny XO, she's really pretty in a sex worker kind of way. She's got blonde, bleached hair. It's styled really nice, tons of makeup, but she's got a nice face. She really does. And she's wearing this very seductive red lace dress that is very, very low cut and long sleeved. And she's smiling. Photo credit goes to Amy Sussman via Getty Images. That story was Bunny XO's sex worker past the reason behind split with Jelly Roll? By Danette Wilford. You've been listening to a reading of articles and features from the June 17th issue of the Toronto Sun. Your reader has been Melanie Guralnick. Thank you for listening.